And one of the things I think it does well is that it takes those categories and contains them and you like as you said they do a really good job of describing them real quick because I know we might have one or two listeners who might not we went over them briefly but might not know what the actual framework what those levels are the different processes. When we talk about reconnaissance, for example, that's the first thing that you do, and this happens in both frameworks as well, but that's when you use you can be either open source tools or other capabilities. You can probe a specific victim or end client to identify specific holes that may exist, and this can be in their cyber strategy. This can be anything from your scan can identify an outdated router. Maybe it's, a couple of different images old, or you can identify key email addresses through Google searches of individuals, or you can identify any number of things. Oh, my favorite is when you identify, because they're rarely updated appropriately, video cameras, online IP cams. And I say that specifically because they're almost like printers at this point with their level of vulnerability. I mean, Foscam, great company, right? But they do not push out enough updates regularly. And as a result, there's just some things that are just so old and outdated, you can take advantage of those. And also, that's cool because you can see stuff that's happening. But you identify this in the reconnaissance phase before you then go into weaponization and decide what tool you're going to use. You're going to try and use in order to gain access to the company. This is the second phase of things in the cyber threat kill chain. And identifying there's a couple different ways to go about weaponization. There's spray and pray, right? Where you throw every different type of tool at the target, or there is refined targeting. And that's usually, okay, I know that they have this specific vulnerability and it is they're specifically susceptible to this type of tool that I'm going to try and use, which then leads into the delivery process. The delivery process is when you actually try to use said tool to gain access and get that initial hook, which leads into the exploitation. The next phase, that's called exploitation. So we had the delivery phase and then the exploitation. In exploitation, you're using the tool and the payload that you've made to actually exploit the system initially. This initial exploitation might be everything you're going for. It might also just be the first step in where you want to go before you move laterally or something along those lines. But that's when you are installing it. This then leads into the installation of malware, right? Which is the next stage, installation, where you're installing the malware. You're installing the backdoors so you can gain access later to a specific system. And then, which then leads into the command and control, where you have your main area of your main channel that you use to control all the other things you're doing in the network, to then run your attack operation, which is then the actions that you're doing in the next phase called actions on objective, I think. And then that's when you're performing the actual hacking and that you're stealing stuff, you're breaking things, you're moving stuff around, you're gaining greater access through your lateral jumps and so forth. Sorry, I just want to make sure we sum that up at some point when we call it